Hello my lovelies, welcome back to my channel. This is your girl Angel from Simply Angel Tia. In this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to crochet these wrist warmers. Now they may look really familiar, and the reason for that is because I've actually already done these wrist warmers on my channel about 10 months to maybe a year ago. I created these guys, and it's probably one of the most watched videos on my channel, but it's also one that has generated a lot of questions, and it's just because the stitches are a little bit tricky. So when people were following the tutorial and kind of trying to recreate these guys, they were having a lot of questions about the stitches and how they were not quite the same in some parts versus others. So this is going to be a redo of this video or that video, so that I can explain further how some of these stitches come to be a little bit different than others. Okay, so as you can see here, I'm also using a different color. I am not going to make it very different compared to the last one that I did. The reason for that is because I don't want to have to make a completely different wrist warmers. I want to make it similar. It's just correcting some of the things, or explaining further, I should say, some of the things that were not very clear in the previous video. Okay, so these are the bad boys we'll be making. And I thought also, with the Christmas season just around the corner, these are very popular for Christmas gifts. So if you have a nice and clear and concise video like this one that I'm about to make, then you will probably make a ton of this so you can gift them for Christmas. And also because they're super fast to make, and you will probably have a couple of pairs of these in about a week for gifting to your friends and family. Okay, all right, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, my lovelies, before we get started, let me show you all the materials that I use for this project. So as you can see here, I have yarn. It's called Capri TM by Loops and Threads. These are all the measurements here. So 174 yards, 3.5 ounces, 160 meters, or 100 grams. Okay. The recommended hook size is 5.5 to 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. It's a medium weight number 4. 57% cotton, 28% nylon, and 15% polyester. And the color is called Apricot. So this beautiful color here is called Apricot. Okay, so that is what I'm using for my yarn. And of course, when it comes to yarn, you can use whatever brand you prefer, whatever color you like, whatever size you want. It's all up to you, but this is what I'm going to be using for this video today. Now for a crochet hook, I'm going to be using a 5 millimeter crochet hook. Okay, so just a little bit under what is recommended. I'm going to be needing a scissors to cut my strands, and a darning needle to sew my wrist warmer together. And of course, it will be good to have some stitch markers laying around, because these will be able to help you when you're sewing your wrist warmer together. You'll be able to know where to start and where to stop. Okay, all right, so with all of that said, let's get started. Okay guys, so to get this video started, I'm just going to pretty much do the same size as I did in the previous video for the wrist warmers. So with that, I'm going to be doing a chain of 41. So this is to fit my small wrist. For those of you who are going to be making something that's a little bit larger, then make sure you're doing something that will actually fit you or whoever you're making these for. So I'm going to be doing a chain of 41, which is the length of where I want my wrist warmers to start and where I want it to end. Okay, so just make sure you measure that to make sure you're doing a chain that is appropriate for the what you're looking for. So to start our foundation chain of 41, I'm going to start with a slip knot. And the way I do my slip knot is I pretty much, as you see, I kind of wind my yarn on my finger like that. And then I take the short end of the yarn and I pinch that between my thumb and my middle finger. And then I take the short end and I wrap it around my thumb like that until I get that X on the end, or on the opposite side of my nail. And then I pinch that between my thumb and my middle finger. I take the loop off like that, and without letting go, I take my hook, I put it in the loop, then I yarn over and I pull it through the loop, and then I let go. Okay, and that's how I do my slip knot. So for those of you who are just learning to crochet, you can either do it like this, or you can do it however it usually is easier for you. Okay, all right, so to start my 41 chains, I'm going to start that now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that is my foundation chain of 41 right here. Okay, so if you're doing a different length, you will be either be shorter than this or longer than this, but that's how your foundation chain should look, very even. Some are not looser than others or tighter than others. Okay, all right, so to get our first row started, we're going to flip our work this way. Okay, so this is the front of the chain and this is the back of the chain. So you will see that these V shapes on the front side and the back side just have these lumps that run along across. It looks like a zipper. Okay, all right, so we're going to skip this very first stitch right here, and in this second one right here, we're going to do a single crochet in the back loop. Now what I'm talking about doing in the back loop is if you flip your work like this, you're going to pick up that stitch. Okay, so this is the back of this chain like that. You're going to pick up that stitch like that, and then you're going to yarn over and bring it through, and then you will yarn over and pull it through, because that is how you do your single crochet. Okay, and then you're going to repeat that again, and you're going to go into the back of the chain and do a single crochet, and then you're going to repeat that pretty much to the end of the chain. Okay, so since we skipped the first stitch, you should have 40 stitches by the time that you have worked along and ended up here. So go ahead and do that. When you come back, I am going to show you how to start the second row, but make sure you're going in the back of the chain to do your single crochet stitch for the first row. Okay, so I will see you guys in a bit. Okay, so I have completed my first row here of single crochet stitch in the back of the chain, of the foundation chain, and this is how your work should look like. So as you see, this is the top of the work. It has these V shapes, and because we did choose to go in the back of the foundation chain, this is also how the bottom of the work looks like. So it looks identical that way. Okay, now, and the only way you will know your work is upright is you have this loop right here like that. Okay, all right, so and make sure you have 40 chains at this time. Okay, if you don't have 40, it's because you missed a stitch somewhere, and maybe you added a stitch if you have more than 40. Okay, so make sure you're counting. We started with a foundation chain of 41. We skipped the first stitch to do our single crochet in the second stitch from the hook, and then we did a single crochet in every stitch to the end, and that should leave you with 40 stitches altogether. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with our second row, and to do so, we're just going to do a chain one and then turn, and we turn our work so we can work back this way. And in the back of the stitches here, yes, again, as you see, there's these V shapes. Now we're not going to be going through the work like this, which is going through both of the stitches or the loops. We're going to be going in the back only, so we're going to be picking up the back of the stitch only to be able to do our single crochet stitches. So that's a chain one, and then in the very first stitch right after the chain one, we're going to pick that and do our single crochet in the back loop only, just like that. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to the next stitch, and we're going to do a single crochet in the back of the next stitch, and then another single crochet in the back of the next stitch, and we're going to do this for the next 16 rows. Okay, so as you can see, I have done 3 so far, so 1 2 3, and I'm going to go ahead and do 13 more to give me 16. And when I get to my 16th stitch, I'm going to come back so I can show you guys how we're going to be changing and starting our puff stitches. Okay, so I will see you guys when I get to my 16th stitch. Okay, so I am at the end of my 16th stitch here. So this is 16 single crochet in the back loop right here. Okay, now we're going to do puff stitches for the remainder of the rows here. And to do our puff stitches, in the very next stitch right here, after we did our single crochet in the back loop, the next stitch right here, we're going to do our puff stitch. And to do our puff stitch, we're going to just go right into that space here, okay, and bring it back. So we're just going to go right into that. We're not going in the back loop only, we're going through both loops. And when you yarn over, you will have two loops on the hook like that. And then you're going to yarn over and go into the loop for the second time, or into the space for the second time. You should have 4 loops on the hook. And then you're going to yarn over, go into the stitch for the third time, and you should have 6 loops on the hook. So we'll count here. So that's 1 loop, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so now that you have your 6 loops on the hook, you're going to yarn over and go through all 6. Okay, and just work your work so you don't pull strings along. And then when you have it pulled through all 6 loops like that, you're going to do a chain of 1 to lock it in like that. Okay, so that is your first puff stitch right there. We're going to skip the next stitch right here. In the next one, we're going to do another puff stitch. So we just go right into it, pull it through, yarn over, go into the same stitch, pull it through. You have 4 loops on the hook. Do 1 more, so yarn over, go into the stitch, bring it back. You have 6 stitches on the sorry, 6 loops on the hook. You yarn over, go through all 6, and then do a chain 1 to lock it in. So that is our second puff stitch right there. And then we're going to repeat that again. So we're going to skip this stitch right here. In the third one, we're going to go into it, yarn over, go through it 1 more time, yarn over, go through it for the third time. That gives you 6 loops on the hook. Yarn over, go through all 6 loops, chain 1. Okay, so we're going to repeat this pattern here until we get to the end. If you have your stitches counted properly, your final puff stitch should go right here. Okay, and it will leave you with a space or 1 more stitch to go at the end. So go ahead and do 12 puff stitches. I have 3 here. Do 12, come back after you're done your 12th one, and we'll see how many stitches you have at the end. If you have more than just 1 because you did something wrong somewhere, if you have less, then you also did something wrong somewhere. So let's go ahead and finish our 12 puff stitches like this first, and then we will determine at the end if we have the right number of stitches. Okay, all right, so go ahead and do that, and I'll see you after you're done your 12 puff stitch like this. Okay, so I have completed my 12 puff stitches here. So as you can see, that's how your work should look like. So we're just gonna count. So this is the first puff stitch right here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, and like I said, I have 1 last stitch left here. So if you do your math properly, we did 16 single crochets in the back loop here, and then we have 12 puff stitches, and then we have 12 skipped spots. So you have 24 total stitches in this area here, plus your 16. That should give you your 40 stitches. So okay, if you have more than 1 stitch left at the end here, you did something wrong, so you need to just go back and redo it. Or if you have more than 1 stitch left at the end, it's the same thing. You did something somewhere, and therefore you undo your work and you're going to start over. Okay, so with that final stitch left here, we're just going to go into both loops like that and do a single crochet stitch just like that. So that locks this end in like that, and that's how your second row should look like. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our third row here. And to do that, we're going to do a chain of 1 and then turn. Okay, so this next row is going to be puff stitches on top of these puff stitches as well, and then we're going to finish it up with a single crochet, and that's going to be how our pattern is pretty much going to repeat itself. Okay, so after your chain, do your chain 1. In this very next stitch here, right after the chain 1, you're going to do a single crochet, and you're going through both loops like that, and you're going to do your single crochet. Okay, and then we're going to repeat the puff stitches here. So you're going to skip this very next stitch right here, and in this third stitch you're going to go into that and do your do your puff stitch. Now if you pull your work like this, there's this gap that is to the right of your right hand side, and there's another gap here to the left. you're going to be working into this right hand side gap here to do your puff stitch. Okay, so we're going to go right into that and loop and yarn over and bring it like that. You have your 2 loops like that, and then you're going to yarn over, go into that same gap. You should have 4 loops on the hook, then yarn over again, go into the same gap, and you should have your 6 loops. And when you have your 6 loops, then you just go ahead and yarn over and pull through all 6, just like that. And then you're going to do a chain 1 to lock your puff stitch together, and then you're going to skip the next stitch, and in the third one you're going to repeat that by doing another puff stitch. So just like that, yarn over, go into that same space, yarn over, go into the same space, and when you have your 6 loops on the hook, you yarn over, you go through all 6, and then lock it in by doing a chain 1. Okay, so that is how your puff stitches should kind of overlap each other like that. Okay, and then I'm going to show you one more, and I'll have you guys do it until you get here before we continue and do the single crochets on the other end. So again, you go into this gap, you skip this stitch, in the next stitch you go into it, yarn over, you have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go into the same stitch for the second time, you have 4, yarn over, go into the same stitch for the third time, you have 6, yarn over, and go through all 6 stitches or 6 loops, and then chain 1 to lock it in. Okay, so you're going to do that pattern all the way to here. So your very last puff stitch should be right here. So this is the last puff stitch from the previous row. Your next one should be right here. So when you get there, come back and I will show you guys how to continue the rest of this row here, and then that will pretty much take us to the next step, which I will show you after that. Okay, so I will see you guys in a bit. Okay guys, so I have gone ahead and completed my puff stitches here. Now the one thing you need to do is you have to make sure you always have 12 puff stitches. So we had 12 here, and I just counted mine, and I have 12 more on top here. Okay, and when you have that part completed and you have done your final puff stitch right here, okay, you're going to go ahead then and do your single crochets in the back loop, just right in the very next stitch. You go right into it and do your single crochet stitch in the back loop, and you're going to go in the next and then do a single crochet stitch, and in the next you're going to do a single crochet stitch, and in the next, and you're going to do these all the way until you get to the end of this row. Now when you get to the end of this row, you're going to come back and I will show you guys how to start the next row together, and the next row is going to be a little bit different. So go ahead and do that, and when you come back, I will go ahead and get started with you in the next row. Okay, so I have gone ahead and completed the single crochet stitch in the back loop until I have one left here, and the reason I came back is so I can show you guys how I finish off the final stitch on this side of the project. So I don't actually go and do my final single crochet in the back loop that like we have been doing the rest of the stitches here. I just go right in and do both, and I go through both loops like that to do my final single crochet. That way it kind of keeps it nice and neat on the end here. Okay, all right, so that is the end of our third row, and that's how it should look like so far. Okay, so you should have that, and then we're going to move on to the next row, and we're going to do a chain of 1 and then turn our work. And then again for the next 16 stitches here, you're going to do a single crochet in the back loop from the very first stitch right here. So you're going to go right into that and do your single crochet stitch. Okay, so that's one. We're gonna start to count here because I think a lot of people start to lose how many stitches they have. So we're gonna do 16. So that's 1, 2, so that's where you add your 16th stitch in the back loop of the single crochet like that. And then because we're doing a row of single crochet all the way, your next single crochet stitch is all on top here should be the remaining 24. Okay, so you're just going to continue that right on top. So right in the next stitch here, you're going to pick that up and do a single crochet stitch in the back loop, and then in the next and then in the next, or even the stitches on top of the puff stitch stitches, you're going to just continue to do your single crochets in the back of those stitches. So these are, I'm just going to show you how they look like. These are the V's here, as you can see, and you're just picking the back of each of the V stitch like this to do your single crochet. Super easy. Okay, and we're going to do this again all the way to the end. And when you get to the very final stitch here, I'm going to go through both loops. So go ahead and do that. When you get to the end, come back and I will show you guys how to start a second row of this single crochet in the back loop, because we're going to do 4 rows total. And then we're going to go ahead and repeat our puff stitches. So I'll see you guys when you get to the end of this row. Okay guys, so I have gone ahead and completed my first row of the single crochet stitch in the back loop here. Okay, now I know this is where a lot of people were confused with the stitches in the previous video, and this is one of the biggest reason why I wanted to redo this video, is so I can explain this very clearly. So now when you have gone and done your single crochet stitches here, keep in mind these first rows that we did, we had 40 stitches we were working with. And as you will see here, if you count the number of stitches that you have here, it's back to 41. Okay, and the reason for that is when we do our puff stitches here and we do a chain 1 to have to lock your puff stitch in, when you do that to the very last puff stitch here, it actually adds a stitch. So now you're back to having 41 stitches from this point. Okay, so now when you start your next row of just single crochet, which is, this is the first one here, you're gonna have to do 3 more for the next part of this pattern. And so these next 4 single crochet stitches in the back loop are all going to be 41 stitches. I want to make that clear because I think I had a lot of questions saying that they keep saying that there's an additional stitch, and the reason for that is just because of the final puff stitch here that we end up doing a chain 1 to lock it in. It does add a stitch. I want you to understand that. Okay, so to go ahead and get started with the next row, we're going to do a chain 1, and then we're going to turn our work. And then in the very next stitch right here, after your chain 1, you're going to do a single crochet in the back loop, just like that. Okay, and then you're going to move on to the next stitch and do your single crochet in the back loop, and then in the next stitch. And at this point, this is pretty much what you're going to repeat for the next 3 rows. Okay, so when you have your next 3 rows completed, which we should make it 4 rows of the single crochet stitch, including this one here, then you're going to come back so we can start another row of the puff stitch. And when we do that, I'm gonna have you guys pretty much repeat this pattern until you have the size that you're looking for that will cover your wrist. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And at this point, like I said again, you should have 41 stitches by the time you come to the end here. And when you do your final single crochet stitch, make sure you go through the both loops of the final stitch here instead of just the back loop. Okay, all right, so go ahead and do that when you have completed 3 extra rows. So this is the second one here. Do finish this second one, do 2 more, and then come back. So you should have 4 rows of this single crochet in the back loop, and then come back, and I will show you guys how to start your puff stitch, and then we will go on from there. Okay, all right, so I'll see you guys in a bit. Hey guys, so I have completed my 4 rows of the single crochet stitch in the back loop right here. So as you can see, it creates these like waviness or ribs that you see here. And of course, because this side we're not doing the puff stitch, it continues like that. And in this side here, there's a puff stitch, and then the 4 stitches or the 4 rows of the single crochet stitch in the back loop. Okay, so this is how your work should look like so far, and this is 7 stitches total. Well, 7 rows, I should say, 7 rows total. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do 1 more row, and then I'm going to have you repeat, because what we're doing is we're pretty much repeating from row 2 onwards, or from the second row that we started with onwards. So after your 4 single crochet stitches in the back loop like that, you're going to go ahead and do your chain 1, and then you're going to turn your work. And then for the next 16 stitches, you're going to do the regular single crochet stitches in the back loop. So you just kind of turn your work after your chain one, and in the very first stitch right after your chain one here, you're going to do a single crochet stitch in the back loop. So that's one, and then you're going to do in the next stitch, you do the same thing, that's two, and in the next stitch until you get to your 16th row, sorry, your 16th stitch. When you have completed 16 stitches of the single crochet in the back loop, then we're going to start our puff stitches, and of course meet me there so I can show you guys how to start the puff stitch after 16 stitches of the single crochet stitch. Okay guys, so this is my 16 stitches of the single crochet stitch in the back loop, just like that. And now we're going to start our puff stitches, and keep in mind, because we have 41 stitches in these rows here, we have 16 here, and instead of 24 stitches left here, we have 25, which means at the end of the puff stitches here, we're going to have 2 stitches left at the end. But I will show you how that goes. So I will get started with the puff stitches, and then I'll have you guys complete everything in between here, and then I will show you guys how to finish off the end here since we have that extra stitch. Okay, so for the puff stitch, after your 16 stitches here, in the very next stitch here, you're going to start your puff stitch. So you just go into the stitch right there like this, and you're going into the both loops. You have 2 loops on the hook, you yarn over, you go into the same stitch, and then you have 4 stitches on the hook, or 4 loops on the hook, you yarn over, you go into the same stitch for the 3rd time, you have 6 stitches, you yarn over, you go through all 6, you chain 1 to lock in your puff stitch. You skip the next stitch. In the 3rd stitch, you go and do your puff stitch. Okay, so I'm just going to go a little bit faster here, lock it in, chain 1, skip. In the next one, you do a puff stitch, and then, like I said again, continue to do this to the end. The most important thing is make sure you have 12 puff stitches. When you have hit your 12 puff stitches, come back to the video. No matter how many stitches you have left at the end, just come back to the video, we'll figure it out. Okay, so go ahead and do that. I have completed 3 puff stitches here. I will go ahead and do 9 more, and then I'll be back to show you guys how to do the next step. Okay, so see you guys in a bit. Okay, so I went ahead and completed my 12 puff stitches here. And just like I said, because we have 41 stitches, we're going to be left with 2 stitches at the end, as opposed to 1 when we started off here. Okay, and that's not a problem at all. And I know this is where a lot of the confusion in the previous video started to come. So what you do here, you just follow the pattern here. You skip this stitch here right after the puff stitch, you skip that stitch, and in the next, which is the final stitch, you just do your single crochet there, just like that. Okay, so this is how it should be going from now on. All right, so to go ahead and start the next stitch here, which is another stitch, another row of the puff stitch, we're going to do chain 1, turn your work. Okay, and then again, this very first stitch right here after your chain 1, you're going to do a single crochet, and then you're going to skip this stitch. In the next stitch, you're going to do your puff stitch. So you just go in like that, and then yarn and go over again, and then yarn, go over into it again. You have 6 stitches, 6 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through all 6. So this is pretty much what you will continue to repeat here. So you will do a chain 1 to lock it in, and then skip this stitch. In the next stitch, do your puff stitch. Okay, and then when you have your 6 loops on the hook, you will yarn over, go through all 6 loops, chain 1, skip this stitch. In the next stitch, do your puff stitch. Okay, so this is where I will leave you guys to pretty much continue with this pattern until you have your size. So I have 7, 8, 9. I'm on my 9th row of this pattern. You're going to do, in my case, I ended up doing 23 rows altogether. Okay, so just keep in mind, if you're doing it for the same size that I'm doing, which is a small, you're going to do 23 rows. If you're going to do more than that, then you're just going to increase by adding another row of puff stitch and another row of the single crochet stitch, and then you could just increase like that. But for now, go ahead and do your 23 rows total. So go ahead and do that. When you have your 23 rows, come back and we'll look at the work together to make sure that we've done the right thing. If not, we can always just rewind the videos and rewatch it. Okay, so I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay guys, so I have gone ahead and completed my 23 rows of this wrist warmer. So as you can see here, that is pretty much how it looks like right now. Okay, so again, this is for my size, which is a small size, and as you can see here, I have a very small wrist. So for you, if you have a tiny bit bigger or even smaller than this, then you would do less rows, and if you have it bigger, then you would do more rows. Okay, so just kind of measure yourself and go based on your own size. So for this, like I said, it's my size, which is a small, and it's about 23 rows. Okay, so just again, like I said, this is for let's flip it this way you can see properly. So this is for each of these is supposed to be 4. Let's start it this way. So this is 4 rows of the single crochet in the back loop. This is also 4 right here. This is 4, and in this here I didn't do the final one, so there's only 3, because what's gonna happen is when I bring this in here and we join it like this, it's gonna be the 4th one when we include the first row that we started our project with right here. Okay, so again, if you're going to be doing it, make sure you're ending with 3 single crochets in the back loop, because the first one is going to be your 4th, because we're keeping it consistent when we do all of these 4 single crochet stitches between our puff stitches. Okay, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what to do next here, and from there on we should be able to be done and kind of sew our work together and be done. But what I'm going to show you guys right now is we're just going to do 1 row of the single crochet on top here to kind of make it a little bit neater, because as you can see right now, it's a little bit raggedy. It's not the best. It's not very sharp, and it's not very nice looking. So we will just do a single row of the double crochet of the single crochet here. Okay, so to start that, we're going to do a chain 1, and then we're going to pivot our work like this, so we're working along the top like this. Okay, so in this very first stitch here, we're going to do a single crochet stitch like that, and then we're going to move on to the next one here, and we're going to do a single crochet, and then up here a single crochet, and then up here a single crochet, and you're just going to kind of gauge where you should be doing a single crochet stitch. The distance should be a little bit even, or actually a lot even, so that there's not too many big gaps between them. It's just something like that. So yeah, so just kind of work with your work and kind of gauge where you should be doing the next. Don't do too many or too less. If you do too less, it's gonna kind of bunch in your work like this, and if you do too many, this part here is gonna look wider than the rest of your work, and you don't want any of those things to happen. So go ahead and do this, just single crochet stitches until you get to here. When you get to there, come back to the video, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to move on to the next step. See you guys in a bit. Okay guys, so as you can see here, I am at the end of doing the single crochet on top here. What I will do to just kind of make this a little bit nice and neat, as you can see here, if I stop here, there's this lump that kind of protrude here. So to kind of fix that, I'm just going to do 1 more single crochet stitch on top like that. So now as you can see, it looks nice and even. Okay, all right, so that is that part completed. And then now we're going to make sure we kind of join our work together. So what I do is, if you look at this side here, is the side that folds in. Okay, and what I will also do on this side is I will look at it to see which side looks like it could fold in. So if you look here, this side is, especially this side here, it looks like the side that I could fold in like this, and this side looks like the side that I could fold in like that. So with no any issues now, I'm just gonna do it like this, because if you fold it outwards like this, it's going to look a little bit weird. In my opinion, you can do it, but for me, I would prefer to have it so that it has like these sections kind of come together inwards like this. Okay, now we're going to bring in our scissors, and I'm going to cut these as much as I need to be able to sew the work together. So let's say, I don't know how long that is, but I'm cutting it here just to be safe so I have extra, but I'm gonna cut my yarn somewhere there. Okay, and I'm going to pull this guy in just like this, and that kind of fastens this section in nice and tight like that. Okay, and now keeping the fact that I'm going to be folding it in like this, I am going to go ahead and make sure I count 10 stitches in this way, and inside on the 10th stitch I'm going to put a stitch marker, because that's where I'm going to put my thumb. I'm going to put my thumb hole. Okay, so I'm just going to do this. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So this is my 10th stitch right here. I'm going to bring in a stitch marker. I'm going to put it in that 10th stitch, and on this side 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. And on that 10th stitch I'm going to join the both sides like that with the stitch marker. Okay, so I'm going to put the stitch marker there. I'm going to count 6 more stitches. So 1 2 3 4 5 6. So on this 6th one here, I'm bringing another stitch marker and putting it there, and then again count on the other side. So 1 2 3 4 5 6, and on that 6th one again I'm going to put a stitch marker there. So what I'm doing here is I'm pretty much sectioning out where my thumb hole is gonna go. So I'm going to join this shut here, skip this section here where my thumb is gonna go, and from here I'm going to pretty much close this section here up to here, and that's how we're gonna create our glove, and it's gonna look something like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to bring my darning needle in. Okay, so make sure you have one. It's gonna make your life a lot easier, especially when it comes to working with things that you have to join like this one. Okay, all right, so we're going to go ahead. So I'm just gonna show you guys how to join this section here, skip this, and then you guys will be able to finish the rest, but not the very first stitch here. In the stitch right on top of it, I'm going to go through that, and on the other side, the stitch right on top of it, I'm going to go through that just like this, and I'm going to pull. Okay, just like that, and I'm going to repeat that again in the exact same spot, and it's just to create a little bit of more security in that section so that it's nice and tight. Okay, and then I'm going to move on to the next stitch right here, and I'm going to go through the both stitches as well for now, and I'm going to pull that and just join it like that. And then now from this point on, I'm going to grab the inside. So as you can see here, this is the 2 loops, but I'm going to grab the inside loop only, and then on that the opposite side I'm going to grab the outside loop only. So this is both. This is the inside only, and that is the outside only. So I'm going to grab the outside only, and I'm going to pull that like this. And then this is pretty much how I'm going to do the rest of it. Grab the inside of this side, the closest side to you. The side that is closest to you, grab the one that is the furthest. And then on the opposite side, you're going to grab the outside portion of that. And then you're going to pull. Okay. So you're going to do this all the way until you get to the stitch where the stitch marker is. So inside, the outside, and then you pull, and then inside and outside, and then you pull. Okay, so go ahead and do this until you get to the stitch marker. When you get to the stitch marker, take it off, and that's where your last is gonna go, and then come back and I will show you guys how to skip this section and then continue to finish the rest of it. Okay, so I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay guys, so I took my stitch marker off right here, and that's where I ended up putting my last like joining. And now we're going to just skip this section here. Okay, So I'm just gonna go right into that here like this and bring the yarn to this side because I want to have it on this side. And then from here on, I'm just going to go like this. So I'm going to go, oh, there you go. Let me just bring this in. I'm going to go in here, bring it in to that side, and I'm going to bring it from the opposite side outwards like that. And if I was to make it extremely easy for me, I would literally just do this. Look, I'm gonna hold it like this. I'm just gonna do this. Go like this, go like this. It comes out, it goes in, and then it comes out where my stitch marker is. You see that? Then I'm gonna pull, and that's how I take my yarn to the other side. And now that's where I have my stitch marker, and I can remove the stitch marker now because this is where the stitch marker is, and on the other side, 1 2 3 4 5 6, this is where the stitch marker is gonna go. So I'm just gonna go ahead and move from this side to the opposite side like that, and join the two sides. I'm gonna do one more in that exact same spot, pull it, and then from now on you just repeat what you did on this side. Okay, you just go the one from the inside to the one on the outside. Okay, pull, inside, outside, and pull, inside, outside, and pull. And then of course you're going to do these all the way to the end here. And when you get to this end here, you will come back to the video and I will just show you how to finish these off and we should be done. Okay, so go ahead and do that and I will see you guys in a bit. Okay guys, so I have completed that section here. So I've just sewn it through all along here, and now I'm at the end. So I'm just gonna do one more closure here just to make sure we have that section nice and tight like that. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut my yarn somewhere here, okay, just like that. And now that I have these two strings left here, I am going to just do a knot. Okay, you can weave it in at this moment if you like to weave your work in, but I'm just gonna tie it like that, and then I'm gonna use my hook to bring each of the strings to, oops, sorry about that, I just kind of punched my camera. Yeah, so anyways, I'm gonna bring the one of the strings each to this side. So this is the first one, then I'm gonna put my crochet hook somewhere here and I bring in the second one. And now that I have both of them on the inside of my wrist warmer, I'm going to tie them again on the inside so that the knot doesn't show. And I'm gonna do that for the second time like that, maybe even the third time, just to make sure it's nice and secure like that. And then I'm gonna bring in my scissors and I'm just gonna cut these guys off like that. Okay, all right, so now that we have done that, this is the end of one of our wrist warmers. Okay, so if you place it down like this, this is how your wrist warmer should look. Okay, this is how one of them should look. Okay, this is where your thumb hole goes, and I'm going to put it on, and this can go on any hand, so it can be either right hand or left hand. And right now, because I have my ring here, I want to pull my yarn. I'm gonna try it on the right hand. Okay, so if I pull it on, this is how it should look like on me. See that? This is so cute. It's so absolutely beautiful. And of course, if you do it with the colors that you like, it's gonna be really, really nice. And as you can see here, the thumb hole just fits my thumb perfectly. So if your thumb is a little bit bigger than this, then this is 6 stitches that we left out here, then you would have had to do either 8, 9, maybe even 10. But for me, 6 stitches for the gap is a perfect size for me. Okay, there. And also what I did different here from the previous video was in this area here last time in that video, I just kind of did like a single crochet or like a slip stitch along the hole here to make it a little bit more visible when you look at it. But in this one, I think I prefer it just to kind of look like that. You don't see that there's a place for you to put a thumb there until you really pay attention. And I think I like it like that better. Okay, so that's it here. So this is your first one done. Go ahead and do your second wrist warmer off camera. Okay, I'm gonna do the same for mine. And when you have your two identical, so you're just gonna pretty much rewind this tape, rewind this video to the beginning, start over, and then do the second one. And if you remember, you don't have to rewatch the video, but if you don't remember some of the things, go back. And then when you have your second one completed, come back and we will look at the two of them when they're all done. Okay, so I will see you guys when you have finished your second wrist warmer. Okay, see you guys in a bit. Okay guys, so I have gone ahead and completed my two wrist warmers, and as you can see here, this is how they look like. So I'm just gonna put it on the side like this. So this is pretty much the end of the project here, and as you guys can see, these look absolutely beautiful. This apricot color is absolutely stunning. I love it so much. It kind of goes with the fall colors right now, so why not? But yeah, so this is pretty much how your wrist warmers should look. Okay, and again, I wanted to redo this pattern because I know a lot of questions were coming about the stitches not coming out even and things like that, and I thought I would take a little bit more time to explain everything in detail. And this is what we have here. Okay, so for those of you, if you're watching this video and you're struggling with the previous video, just come to this one. This is going to be so much more better and well explained compared to the other one. And yeah, so I hope this is going to be helpful to most of you. But this is pretty much the end of the video here. Thank you so much for watching it, and especially to the end. And if you're at this moment of the video but you know you have not yet subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe to the video. And when you have done so, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you comment, and make sure you hit the notification bell so you can be notified of future videos that I will be posting. Okay, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Kwaheri.